FSU fam? James Black, he's the guy. And in this video, we're going to go over, kind of break down James Blackman, what we need to see from him, what his improvements need to be, and basically just the outlook of the quarterback situation. Is James Blackman the right choice? Was he the only choice? We're going to dive into that today. So we're not going to waste too much time. Like always, hit the like button, comment, subscribe, share, and let's get started on James Blackman winning the quarterback job QB1 for the upcoming season, and we'll start the game versus Georgia Tech next Saturday. James Blackman beats out Jordan Travis, Tate Rodemaker, and Chubba Purdy. Now, no caveat to that, or little side story or whatever. Jordan Travis was dealing with some undisclosed injury where he didn't scrimmage. And him missing scrimmages and valuable practice time, he wasn't going to beat out Black. And everybody at this point, if you're a Seminole fan and you're watching this video and you watch my channel, you know Chubba Purdy dislocated, broken collarbone in a non-throwing shoulder. He's going to miss some weeks. Probably won't be available till maybe week 3, 4, 5 of the season. He wasn't in the running for the quarterback competition either. So the question gets asked, did Blackman win the job by default? And I believe that's a yes or no question. I believe he was, me personally, I do think he won it to a degree by default because I've been saying this, and it's nothing against Tate. I think Tate is going to be in future quarterback battles here at FSU. There was no way you were going to start Tate Rodemaker over James Blackman. There's nothing Tate Rodemaker does as a true freshman at a high school that I think trumps the experience of what a James Blackman can give you. James Blackman knows the speed of the college game. We'll get into all that, but Rodemaker needed the reps for his development, which is awesome. So Rodemaker getting those first team reps is really going to help his development going forward, but he wasn't going to start. So that's why I say, to a degree, Black won by default. However, I think even if Chubba had been completely healthy throughout the entirety of fall, I still think James would have ended up starting the season. I think it was always the plan to have James Blackman start the season. Doesn't mean he was going to finish. Now, he may still finish it this year, depending on Chubba's recovery and how the season tends to go as a whole. But I always think the plan was to let James start and go from there. So, I don't really think Tate really had a chance. But let's break down James Blackman, right? All those other quarterbacks, Jordan Travis, he's going to be getting packages. I fully believe you could see Jordan Travis have about, depending on how a game's going, but probably anywhere from 5 to 10 plays calling for him a game where you're just going to use his legs or use him as a decoy to use his legs, and he can throw the ball out there to a target. I think they're going to use Jordan Travis a great deal, so I wouldn't be too worried there. And Rodemaker will be your emergency backup for the foreseeable future until Chubba gets back to full strength. But let's break down James Blackman, and let's talk about what are his strengths of his game and what are the weaknesses to James Blackman's game. So I believe we're going to start with the strengths. And I believe James Blackman's strength, as everybody knows, is his arm strength. He's got a good arm. I don't want to sit here and tell you it's NFL elite level arm, right? But he has a good arm, especially a good Division I college, ACC college quarterback arm. He pretty much makes all the college throws, and he can stretch the field over the top. So that's a plus. I think James Blackman's leadership is a good plus, right? Guys in the locker room like him, will follow him. And he's always been a very humble kid. And yeah, his leadership is definitely one of his strengths. His experience is another strength. The guys played the Clemsons, the Floridas. He saw some of that Alabama game after Francois got hurt. Um, Miami games. Black's been in the fire, man, and he's played some of the toughest defenses in college football. Period. He has experience, and um, he's had some pretty good success on the football field as well. So that experience is a big factor in his strengths and his heart, man. There's one thing, and you can question a lot of things about Black if you want to. There's one thing you can't question about James Blackman is his heart. That kid has heart. That kid has no quit in his game. He will get knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, and he will continue to get up, brush the dirt off, and come right back. Those are his strengths. Here's his weaknesses. For weaknesses, I said decision making / vision. So I don't think James Blackman makes terrible decisions. So the reason I put these sort of in the same category, because sometimes we can mistake decision makings for just a lack of field vision. And you say, well, he made a bad choice there, but if he didn't even see it, was it a bad choice, or was it just poor vision on his part? So I think those two, in my opinion, for James Blackman go hand in hand. There are plays that I've watched and games and film that I've watched of his where I don't know if he just made a poor decision or if he just never saw the play and went to in another route when there was a wide open play over here. You know what I mean? So decision making / vision. His accuracy has to improve. There's too many times where he's made the right decision and he's completely missed the throw. Now, no quarterback's perfect, and quarterbacks are always going to miss throws. Even the best quarterbacks are going to miss throws. Nobody has 100% completion percentage. Nobody's hitting in the 80 percentile of completion percentage. It's very rare for a quarterback to hit in the 70% in completion percentage. Majority is, high 60s is what you consider good completion percentage for a quarterback. But there are too many times where he's missed the easy throws. I blame James Blackman for the most part. I think has a good, accurate deep ball. It's not the perfect deep ball, but out of all his throws, I think his deep ball is the most accurate. He's really got to tighten up his short game accuracy. There were some plays, again, I always go back to this Virginia game. There were just plays in that Virginia game last year where if he makes short, accurate throws, there's a good chance FSU can win that game. So he's got to tighten up his accuracy. He holds the ball too long. Another weakness of James Blackman. A lot of people like to talk about his offensive line, and I will not sit here and pretend like James Blackman has had a good offensive line to work with. He has not. Not in any of his time here at Florida State. So we're not going to pretend that he has. But he hasn't given his offensive line any help for that matter. James Blackman holds on to the ball entirely too long, which goes back to his decision making and his vision. He takes him too long to make a decision, to scan the field. He's holding on to the ball. He's so desperate to make a play when he should probably just be getting rid of the ball or whatever, and he just holds on to the ball too long, which results in the sacks, rush throws, and hits. He's got to get rid of the ball. If the play's not there, just get rid of the ball and live to play another down. That's where he needs to tighten up his decision-making as well. That goes along hand in hand with decision-making to me. That's holding on to the ball. He's got to stop holding on to the football so long. And then finally, his composure. We all know it. We all saw it in his last game against Arizona State in that bowl game. His composure. He had a mental breakdown against Arizona State. And quite frankly, at the time, I thought that may have been the last we had seen of James Blackman. It was that bad. It was that bad against Arizona State. I really thought that was the last we were ever going to see of Black in an FSU uniform as the starter. I really thought that. Kudos to Black for dusting his shoulders off again, going back to that heart. He dusted his shoulders off. He came back. He wins the job, and we're going to move forward. But he has to be like cool, calm, and collective under pressure. He has to let the bad plays go. You cannot let things compound on top of each other, and then you just break down or you're crying. And you can't see that out of a quarterback at Florida State. So he's got to, we've got to fix that. Those are the strengths and the weaknesses when we're talking James Black. His career numbers at Florida State. Check this out. 4,000 yards, a 60.9 completion percentage, which isn't terrible, isn't great, but isn't terrible. 36 touchdowns, 19 interceptions. Solid ratio right there. It's a lot of interceptions, but he's thrown his fair share amount of touchdowns. The most interceptions he's ever thrown is 11 interceptions in a season. So, take that for what you will. Those numbers tell me you got a lot of good, solid base with James Blackman to work with. And we're going to get into what I think is the potential of Blackman going into this season. But basically, man, the man needs to improve that decision making. Let's talk about what we've seen so far in camp. And so far, I have seen improved mechanics from him. Now, from the clips I've seen, FSU has been pretty tight on the clips. They give you maybe 2-minute clips. They don't show a lot. We haven't been able to see a lot in this fall camp, and we haven't been able to see. We're probably not going to see a lot for the game prep against Georgia Tech. But from what I saw, his throwing motion has really tightened up. He's got rid of the elongated motion from the looks of it in practice. We'll see if he resorts back to what he is in a game type situation. Throwing mechanics have tightened up. I like to see that. Quicker release, quicker decision making. That's a positive. I just think, honestly, James Blackman's going to just be better. I don't want to sit here and hype him up and tell anybody that he's going to be all world. Black's just going to be better because he has improved coaching around him. Period. He has an offensive coordinator and a head coach that is of one mind. He has, everything, all the offense is going to be geared and on the same page. That alone is going to improve James Blackman. Offensive line is still a work in progress, but we're not going to talk about the offensive line because James Blackman can't control the offensive line. I mainly want to talk about what James Blackman can do to be better, but offensive line goes hand in hand with the rest of the offense. I think we'll see an improvement on all areas. And look, man, like I was just saying, that leads me to the former coaching. Like, James Blackman alluded to it in a lot of his interviews. He didn't really have faith in the former coaching staff. And there's a lot of talk that the former coaching staff didn't really have faith in him. It's one of the reasons why they kept rotating Alex Hornibrook and him, when it was obvious that Alex Hornibrook probably wasn't any more better than James Blackman. So just having that staff around him that's going to entrust him and have confidence in him, I think will rise his game. And he didn't have that with that last staff on either side. I don't think they trusted him. I don't think he trusted them. And I think it just got to the point where they had him out there because they had no other options. And and even with all the controversy around James Blackman, with all the different coaching and different offensive coordinators, different head coaching, guess what? The guy still has a solid college football career. It ain't great, but it ain't the worst we've ever seen either. He has putting up solid numbers as a FSU starting quarterback, and I really think this is the year he can take the step. Now the question is, how big is the step? I think he's going to take a step. The question is going to be, is he taking, a 2-inch step, or is he taking a giant leap for mankind, right? That's what we're really getting at. And that'll determine FSU's season offensively. I think it's going to take some time for that offense to really click and find its rhythm and its chemistry personally. I think this team is going to be carried by defense going forward, but we'll talk about that in a later video, mainly my season preview and that Georgia Tech preview. But we're on James Blackman now. And then I also want to get into the worst case scenarios, right? When we're talking James Blackman in this season. Worst case scenario, man, is he regresses, which I don't see happening, but we're just to something to think about or whatever. Worst case scenario is he regresses for whatever reason. Maybe the pandemic affects his game preparation or has affected it. Maybe the pandemic has affected his growth. Maybe he just can't get on page with Norvell and what Norvell wants to do and what he's trying to do. Again, I don't think any of this stuff is going to happen. Quite frankly, I think moving to the pro-style offense is going to do nothing but benefit a guy who was recruited to be a pro-style quarterback. but maybe he can't. Maybe his accuracy is still an issue. Still seeing ghosts in the pocket. I mean, let's face it. James Blackman has been sacked 58 times in his entire career here at Florida State. And that's just sacks. We're not even going to count. You could probably double the amount of times he's been hit. He's probably been hit well over 100 times in only 2 full seasons of starting. Because he didn't start his sophomore year. He redshirted. That was the year DeAndre Francois started. Started his freshman year after Francois got hurt. Came back his sophomore year, redshirted, and started last year. In 2 seasons, the dude probably has over 100 hits. That's ridiculous. You almost can't blame him for feeling ghosts in the pocket. He's been hit so much. So if he's still feeling those ghosts, he's still having those mental breakdowns after mistakes, accuracy issue and regression, that's your worst case scenario where it may be, where at that point, maybe we're looking at James Blackman as damaged goods. And we just, we just got to move on from him if that's the case. That's the worst case scenario. Here's the best case scenario. They fix his accuracy, and he turns from a career average of 60.9, and he bumps that up to 65%, which is a huge bump in his accuracy. 65% accuracy for the year. Best case scenario, going back to that pro style offense helps him. He goes back to what he knows, what he's used to. That muscle memory kicks in, and he's throwing them darts and them dimes, reads and progressions. He can go through them quicker because it's the offense that he's used to. He doesn't have to worry no more about this read option, read and react type of offense. He's just gonna go out there. He knows what he's doing, that type of deal. And of course, he learns to control his emotions. He becomes, cool Joe Namath in the pocket. Nothing rattles him, so to speak. And that's the best case scenario. Here's what the most likely scenario is. This is what I think you're going to see from James Blackman for the most part this season. I think he will show some improvement from the coaching. I think the coaching and the scheme will help him a lot. I think the decision-making and his timing will improve. I do. I think you will see a slight increase in accuracy. I don't know if you can fix his accuracy issues in one offseason where you didn't even have a spring, right? So as a realistic look at it, I think a realistic approach to it, can he bump a 60 up to a 62? I think it's possible. I don't know if he's going to get to 65 or higher, which would be very vastly improved and kind of what needed. But, maybe he gets to 62% accuracy. I think you'll see a slight increase, nothing huge. But even a slight increase will benefit. And he should be more comfortable in the pocket. But there's a lot of things that go into that. And I think, here's the thing, though. I still think his emotions will be an issue. And it's not a knock on him per se. I just think that's how he's built, right? Some people are just stoic and calm and cool and don't let things rattle them. And then some people, man, they are emotional. They are emotional creatures, and they react to things differently. I think James Blackman might just be an emotional guy. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I still think there'd be an issue. I just don't want to see a mental breakdown on the sideline. But I do expect him to still show that emotion, still show those high highs. Let's just hope he doesn't start showing those low lows when we're talking about emotions. I think that's the most likely scenario. And then what to ultimately expect from Blackman. For FSU to be successful this year with a defense I think could be really special this year, personally, just manage the games, man. Just manage the games. Don't try to go out there and be a hero. You have playmakers on your side of the ball. Learn to throw the ball away. That goes back, like I said, to this holding the ball too long. If you ain't got it, man, read the field, react. You ain't got it, man. Throw the ball out of bounds. Move out the pocket. Throw the ball out the bounds so you don't get intentional granted. And let's move on to the next play. But trying to hold the ball when you know your offensive line is already not the best and getting sacks and fumbles, it doesn't benefit anybody. Don't be a hero, man. Get rid of the ball. Move on to the next play. Trust your playmakers. Get the ball in their hands and let them make plays. And then don't put the defense in bad situations with turnovers, man. Just don't turn the ball over in silly situations where even though I think we're gonna have, I don't know if elite's the word yet. I gotta see him. I want to see him, but I'm thinking a big time defense, and I'll hold off on that word elite, But we could be moving to that situation. But don't put him in bad situations on a defense that's already probably gonna be on the field majority of the time anyway. Because I still think this offense is gonna have some kinks to work out, some chemistry issues to work out in those early games. But don't put them in a situation where they're backed in their own 20 because of a turnover, right? Help the defense out, and ultimately, if you do those things, man, I think FSU can be successful, have a successful season, and Black could have a bounce back season and be looking something more like what we want him to look like as an FSU college quarterback. I think he'll be successful if he does all those things. I went kind of longer than I wanted to, but man, that was really the breakdown of James Blackman, him winning the starting quarterback job, and what I really feel about him going forward. I was on the Purdy bandwagon, but the facts are Purdy's hurt, Black's the guy, and those are the things I think Black can improve on, what he's good at, and what he needs to do to be successful. As always, it's your boy, Polk County Noel. Hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share, tongue twisted. Comment, subscribe, and share. And like always, stay classy, Seminoles. And we out here. And Wakanda forever.